Yes!
The Pokemon franchise made it to 25 years not too long ago, and the core series games that we've become so affined to have stayed pretty much the same the entire time. Along the way, we've had plenty of spin-off titles such as Pokemon Ranger and Mystery Dungeon, and both of these series have garnered their own success. But it's difficult to deny that anything can compete with the conventional formula of the core series games. For the past 2.5 decades, the Pokemon games have mostly been known for embarking on an adventure, catching Pokemon and battling with them. And Nintendo Game Freak hasn't divagated away from this regiment, probably because it's been successful for all these years. You know how the saying goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Whether this lack of change is good or bad is entirely up to you, but I will understand why anybody would have a problem with this. Because when you've been doing the same thing for years and years on end, it'll always throw everybody for a loop when something differently is done. For instance, the starter Pokemon have always been Grass, Fire, and Water type. The Grass, Fire, and Water trio has always been perfect because of its similarity to Rock, Paper, Scissors, in the sense that not a single one of the starters can be the most powerful. But I remember back before the release of Diamond and Pearl, fake leaks made it online saying that the Diamond and Pearl starters would be a Dark, Fighting, and Psychic trio, which coincidentally has the same Rock, Paper, Scissors similarity as the Grass, Fire, and Water trio. Of course, this never ended up being the case because it was eventually revealed that Turtwig, Chimchar, and Piplup would be the Sinnoh starters, but oddly enough, the fully evolved Kalos starters actually ended up having Dark, Fighting, and Psychic as their secondary typings. It's funny how that ended up happening. But anyways, now that we're on the subject of starters, the starter Pokemon that kicked off each newly introduced generation have always been the first form of a 3-stage evolutionary line. And being the first Pokemon that accompany us on our adventure, the starters are usually the most favorite Pokemon in the franchise. 3-stage evolutionary line Pokemon exhibit the best example of growing from a child to a teen, then finally to an adult, which is another reason why starter Pokemon are so easy to bond with. But how would you react if Game Freak threw us for a loop and tried something completely new with the starter Pokemon in a future core series iteration? What if we started off with a single stage Pokemon instead? Now, for those of y'all that are watching this video with the thought that this would be a ridiculous idea, there's a few things I want y'all to take into consideration because we've had similar instances happen in a few of the games. Okay, so let's take a look at Pokemon Yellow version for example. This game released about a year or so after Red, Blue, and Green, and despite the fact that Bulbasaur, Charmander, and Squirtle were all available in the game, your starter Pokemon in this title was a Pikachu. The gameplay and overall adventure of Yellow version was pretty much the same as the original 3 Gen 1 games, but your starter Pikachu isn't capable of evolving. Okay, so the Pikachu species itself obviously evolves in a Raichu via Thunderstone, but if you try to make your starter Pikachu evolve in Pokemon Yellow version, it'll refuse the Thunderstone every time. A small part of Yellow version's overall endeavor was to give players a reminiscent feel of what it's like to walk in the shoes of Ash Ketchum, since at the time of Gen 1, the Pokemon franchise was super popular, and Pikachu, its mascot, was one of the most recognizable fictional characters at the time, and that's still applicable in the present day. And I'm pretty sure that kids growing up in the 90s who watched the Pokemon anime wanted to be just like Ash. So yeah, this is the first time that we were given a starter Pokemon that couldn't evolve, but since Pikachu actually is capable of evolution, it isn't the same concept of starting off with a single stage Pokemon, since this is simply a case of an in-game restriction. Now, if you traded your partner Pikachu from Yellow version to Red or Blue and introduced it to a Thunderstone, it would evolve just fine. But when you trade it back to Yellow version, the game won't recognize it as your original starter anymore. It'll just be a regular old Raichu. Now in Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, you start off with either a Pikachu or an Eevee. That was pretty obvious, but no differently than the original Pokemon Yellow, your partner Pikachu or Eevee are not capable of evolving. But on the bright side, the starter Pikachu and Eevee in these games have higher base stat totals than regular Pikachus and Eevees to compensate for not being able to evolve. So yeah, Yellow version and Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee are the closest that we've ever gotten to single stage starters. Also, this isn't relevant to the starters, but Wishiwashi is a single stage Pokemon whose signature ability, known as Schooling, enables it to change form. At the start of battle or at the end of a turn, if its HP is above 25%, it'll change into a Schooling form. At the end of a turn, if its HP is equal to 25% or below, it'll change back to a solo form. However, Wishiwashi's school form isn't available until it reaches level 20. This is interesting because this is the first time that a Pokemon with the ability to change forms relies on reaching a certain level first. That sounds incredibly similar to evolution to me, but anyways, Shaman, the mythical Pokemon, has 2 forms consisting of his land form and his sky form. In his sky form, it has the same base stat total of 600 as his land form, but the stat distribution is completely different and it gains the flying type. But based on cosmetics alone, Skyform Shaman is an entirely different Pokemon, and anybody who wasn't already aware that the land and sky forms were the same Pokemon, it would make sense to think that the Sky form was an evolved form. But my point still remains. We've never actually had a game where we start off with Pokemon that are literally incapable of evolving. And it's safe to say that this is something that Game Freak has never tried because of the reasons mentioned earlier. However, there does exist a fairly popular fan-made Pokemon game known as Pokemon Xenoverse, and all three of the starters are technically single-stage Pokemon. Okay, before I proceed, this is a spoiler warning for anybody who hasn't played Pokemon Xenoverse yet, but yeah, I said technically because they're single-stage Pokemon, but with a very interesting twist. The starters in Pokemon Xenoverse are known as Shylion, Trishao, and Shulong, and all three of them are completely incapable of conventional evolution. Instead, they have 3 different forms that they can assume in the game, and since these are alternate forms of the same Pokemon, they have the ability to revert back to their base forms. But the way that the starters in Xenoverse form change is executed so perfectly because all of the alternate forms look like older, more powerful versions of the base starters. So it's a method of form change that's strongly reminiscent of conventional evolution. And all of this got me thinking about something. This is very similar to how Digivolution works in the Digimon franchise. For those of y'all that weren't already aware, Digimon have multiple different stages, but the rookie stage is the closest equivalent to a base form Pokemon capable of evolving. Examples of rookie level Digimon consist of Agumon, Vmon, and Guilmon, and these particular Digimon are the partner creatures of some of the main characters in the series and are most easily compared to starter Pokemon. The main difference between Pokemon evolution and Digivolution is that Pokemon evolution is permanent, and it is impossible for a Pokemon to revert back to its base form, or a prior form. So when Torchic evolves in a Combusken, it'll always remain a Combusken until it eventually evolves into a Blaziken. As stated earlier, this alludes to a human going from childhood to adulthood because Pokemon are incapable of reverting to their previous forms in their respective evolutionary line, no differently than a grown adult lacking the capability of reverting back to a child. But when a Digimon digivolves, it normally does so for a very specific reason, the most common one being to assume a more powerful form to become more efficient in combat. Then after the fight is over, the Digimon reverts back to the form it was in when it first entered combat, and it's almost always the rookie form. So, if Agumon was to digivolve into Greymon, its champion level digivolve form, then Greymon digivolved into Metal Greymon, its ultimate level digivolve form, it'll revert back to Agumon when the battle is over. You could think of Digivolution as a combination of what we know as evolution and form changing in the Pokemon franchise. Digivolution is both a temporary transformed state, like when a Pokemon changes to an alternate form, but the transformed state that the digivolved Digimon assumes is a completely different creature and not simply a more powerful transformed version of the creature it was beforehand. Again, like Agumon when it digivolves into Greymon. Fun fact, when Mega Evolution was first revealed before Pokemon X and Y released, a lot of people felt that it was corny and its concept was too commonly compared to Digimon. But now it's one of the most requested features that the fanbase wants to see return in future core series Pokemon titles. It's funny how things change. So yeah, I really like the twist that Pokemon Xenoverse put on things when it comes to the starter Pokemon. And as much as I would like to see something like this happen in the core series titles, I highly doubt that it would happen because I can't see Game Freak diverging from such a successful formula. But who knows? We may not ever get a core series title where our starters are single stage Pokemon, but it's entirely possible for it to happen in a spin-off title. Pokemon Legends Arceus, for instance, is something that has never been done before, and its mere existence has the entire Pokemon fan base going crazy. Many new ideas have been introduced in the Pokemon franchise, and with many examples of single stage Pokemon possessing the ability to change forms into something that looks like an actual evolved form, the line between conventional evolution and form changing is starting to become very thin. And due to my increasing affinity for single stage Pokemon, it would be nice to see him receive more love. And honestly, out of respect for the starter Pokemon tradition that's been present in the games since the first generation, I wouldn't even want a core series title to introduce single stage starters because it would be significantly more interesting if this happened in a spin-off title. This would be the safest route to take because a spin-off title that introduced single stage starters will be able to create its own legacy and precedent without the worry of living up to the standards of a core series title. Another thing to realize is that everybody bonds with their starter Pokemon because it's the first Pokemon given to you when you first begin your adventure, and it's there with you when you beat the game. You literally watch it grow up, and even though you may have an entire list of favorite Pokemon, it's pretty unlikely that your starter isn't one of them. But the bond with a single stage starter will be completely different for the simple fact that its incapability of evolving means that it'll always be the same exact buddy that you've always known. But yeah, everybody, that does it for this one. So what do y'all think? Would a Pokemon game with single stage starters work, or is the current 3-stage evolutionary line formula unbeatable? Let me know how you feel in the comment section. And if you made it to the end of this video and enjoyed what you watched, do me a favor and thumb us to that like button until it turns blue. And if you're new to my neck of the woods, go ahead and subscribe to the channel and click that bell icon so you don't ever miss a video of the most elite gaming content. But with that being stated, 1LHD is over and out. Y'all take it easy.